In tonight's headlines, Labor Secretary Chris Sun says about 770 former staff of the now-defunct Physical Fitness have sought help from the Labor Department. Tourism and catering sector representatives say business activity during the National Day holiday was better than expected. Lawmaker Peter Shiu urges the government to slash spirits tax to 20% and to remove the median wage requirement for imported workers.
An unexpected reopening of the former physical fitness branch in Wenchai yesterday, now rebranded as Perfit, offered a glimpse of hope for former customers and employees that have been left high and dry after the gym chain's abrupt closure last month. The new investor, medical beauty group Perfit, has promised to rehire Physical's old employees and honor unredeemed services for customers, but also denied any ties with the branch's previous owner, Healthy. As the new contracts and fee schedules are yet to be unveiled, concerns rise, especially among customers who have just signed up with Healthy. Such as this customer, claiming that he did not even thoroughly review the terms before signing with Healthy, was now being left worrying if it could influence his future dealings with the new owner. For many employees, the urgency to secure employment is palpable. Over 200 former staff members have already accepted job offers from Perfit. Secretary for Labor and Welfare Chris Sun urged them to carefully review the terms before signing any contracts. The workers should ensure their rights won't be harmed. If there's a need, the Labor Department could provide assistance to the employees, he said. He also mentioned that about 770 workers have requested help from the department, and authorities are currently assisting them in claiming their unpaid wages and severance payments. Quentin Yang, Cable News.
The hospitality and catering sectors in the city both reported business exceeding expectations during the National Day Golden Week holiday, thanks to the surging stock markets and a cool-down in Hong Kongers' enthusiasm in heading north to spend. 5 days into the Golden Week, the city has already welcomed over 700,000 visitors and 700 tour groups from the mainland.
Taking to the
airwaves, Executive Director of the Tourism Association Timothy Choi noted that budget-friendly small to medium-sized hotels remain in high demand, with some rooms nearly impossible to secure. The affordable prices have made these hotels particularly attractive to tourists. On the other hand, since there is a sufficient supply of rooms, the industry has been relatively controlled with their pricing, unlike last year, he added.
Speaking
on the same program, Perry Yu, chairman of China Travel Service, noted a shift in visitors' booking patterns. Many tourists are booking last minute. On the first day of the holiday, occupancy rates hovered around 85%, but a surge in reservations came in unexpectedly later in the afternoon, he said, adding that room rates in the city were approximately 10% lower than that of last year and made it more competitive when compared to other cities in the mainland. Meanwhile, Simon Wong, president of the Hong Kong Federation of Restaurants and Related Trades, observed a more generous spending attitude among consumers, who are opting for premium dishes over promotional offers, probably due to the improvement in the stock market. He projected that total sales on National Day for the industry at around $300 million, consistent with last year's figures. Wong also noted a drop in the number of local people leaving for the mainland on National Day, compared to the public holidays and weekends in recent months, which may imply that Hong Kongers' enthusiasm to consume on the mainland might have cooled down. Jeremy Zhu, Cable News. As the new policy address is approaching, Chairman of the Liberal Party, Peter Shiu, expressed hopes for the government to reduce the excise duty on spirits to boost the economy and to review the current imported labor's wage policy. The Talking to iCable News, Shiu said although the influx of tourists during the National Day Golden Week provided a short-term boost to the retail sector, long-term measures are necessary to enhance the SAR's competitiveness. He suggested relaxing the excise duty on spirits as a strategy. Our excise duty of 100% is significantly higher than in neighboring regions like Taiwan, Singapore, and Japan. Reducing it to 20% could encourage more spending, benefiting sectors like nightclubs, bars, and restaurants, Shiu explained. Meanwhile, the lawmaker pointed out that the high labor costs associated with imported labor would hinder the city's competitiveness. He said the current policy mandates that employers pay imported workers a monthly salary that meets the median wage, in addition to a training fee of $9,600 and accommodation costs, placing a heavy burden on small and medium-sized enterprises. Shiu proposed reassessing the industry median wage requirements for imported labor. According to Shiu, imported workers in Macau earn about two-thirds of what is paid to domestic workers, while Singapore pays only half to Malaysian workers. Removing the median wage requirement could enhance our competitiveness. To protect local residents, we could implement a quota system, such as hiring 3 locals for every imported worker, he added. Additionally, Shiu urged the government to announce major event arrangements early, enabling businesses to plan activities that attract tourists and increase economic benefits. Jeremy Zhu, Cable News.
Despite ongoing voices to urge the government to help grassroots in the city to secure employment, the government argued that the existing strategy of targeted poverty alleviation was proven effective. An annual poverty report published by Oxfam Hong Kong revealed that the wealth gap in the city has widened to an alarming level, with almost 1.4 million residents living below the poverty line.
貧窮嘅情況呢，已經係遍地開花喎。
Taken to the airwaves this morning, Professor Paul Imp from Hong Kong University's Department of Social Work and Social Administration highlighted that poverty and underemployment are widespread across the city. Even skilled workers are faced with unemployment and underemployment following the pandemic, and the issue is not limited to some poor districts but citywide, said the professor, attributing the issue to the transformation of the economy after the pandemic. Speaking on the same radio program, Xie Lai Shan, Deputy Director of the Society for Community Organization, noted that there are significant job deficiencies in construction, catering, and retail sectors, urging the government to enhance support for job seekers, while suggesting the government to increase minimum wages and on-the-job allowances for grassroots workers. However, Secretary for Labor and Welfare Chris Sen maintained that the government has stepped up efforts in targeted poverty alleviation, pointing out that the low-income population primarily consists of elderly citizens aged 65 and above, for whom special allowances have been allocated. But he pledged to address job shortages caused by imported labor while ensuring that local workers are prioritized for employment opportunities. Meanwhile, the labor minister also said the current administration aimed to propose a framework to define poverty to replace the poverty line which had been used for almost a decade. Quentin Ya, Cable News.
Police clamped down on a theft gang, arresting 3 suspects allegedly involved in 7 theft cases across various districts, with stolen items valued at approximately $270,000. According to police, the suspects would wait near ATMs for opportunities to steal. In one incident, a victim withdrew $100,000 only to discover moments later that his backpack had been opened and the cash was gone. The suspects, 2 men and 1 woman aged 39 to 47, entered the city on travel documents and are currently being detained for further investigation. During the operation, authorities seized clothing worn by the suspects, a SIM card used during the crimes, an octopus card, and a small amount of cash. Police reminded the public to be vigilant and safeguard their belongings in crowded areas.
In an unprecedented airstrike campaign in the past 3 weeks, Israel's pummeling against Lebanon had killed over 1,400 people, injured nearly 7,500 others, and displaced more than 1.2 million people from their homes, according to the Lebanese Health Ministry. The Lebanese capital Beirut and the southern border with Israel have experienced the most intense bombardment, as Israel vows to dismantle Hezbollah strongholds in the region. Civilians are bearing the brunt of this conflict, fleeing desperately in search of safety. Some are attempting to escape to neighboring Syria, which is also under heavy bombardment. However, key routes were severed by Israeli airstrikes on Friday. Some seek refuge with the humanitarian organizations within Lebanon, but vacancies are filling up. Others are left sleeping on the streets and in parks, waiting for what feels like an inevitable fate.
As of 2nd of October, IOM has identified over 500,000 internally displaced persons, with 400,000 displaced in just the last 2 weeks. Of these, more than 165,000 are living in 800 collective shelters across the country.
Most of Lebanon's nearly 900 shelters were full and cannot take in any more refugees, he added. Baby Rita was among the youngest of the displaced. The 20-day-old infant barely survived an airstrike against her village in southern Lebanon upon her birth last month, only to be left homeless. The United Nations Special Coordinator for Lebanon, Imran Riza, urged Israel to respect the rules of war so that humanitarians can be allowed to access people in need, protect civilian infrastructures and water systems. At the same time, countries are racing against time to evacuate citizens from Lebanon. Beijing said today it had safely withdrawn 200 citizens from the warring state, including 3 Hong Kong and 1 Taiwan resident. South Korea and the Netherlands have also deployed military aircrafts for evacuations. However, for vulnerable locals without a powerful home country to assist them, all they can do is to pray for an early end to the war. Quentin Yang, Cable News.
United States officials have confirmed military strikes against Houthi forces in Yemen, reporting that it aimed at 15 Houthi positions, including weapon storage facilities and military bases. Houthi-run media indicated that 4 strikes targeted the capital Sana'a and 7 hit the airport in the port city of Hodeidah. Loud explosions could be heard in both cities, along with thick smoke seen in the sky. Kathaib area, which houses a Houthi-controlled military base, was also hit. Houthi forces had earlier launched a ballistic and anti-ship missiles from the Red Sea towards the Gulf of Aden, deploying drones to attack 3 U.S. vessels. However, all missiles were successfully intercepted by U.S. Navy destroyers.
Flash floods and landslides in central Bosnia-Herzegovina have left at least 19 people dead, with towns and villages cut off and reports in some places of homes being almost submerged. A number of other people have been reported missing, and a state of emergency has been declared. Some of the worst scenes were in the area around Jablanica, a town on the main route between the cities of Mostar and the capital city of Sarajevo. Rivers burst their banks after an overnight storm, and many towns and villages left inundated. Roads, bridges, and railway tracks were washed away or blocked by debris, while landslides left houses buried in rocks and earth as high as their upper stories. As the storm struck Friday overnight, dozens of residents had to evacuate in the middle of the night after they were startled awake. Some of them returned home to clean up once the rain stopped. Rescue services were out to search for survivors and called on volunteers and the army to assist as roads were closed and houses left without electricity.